John Gormley, Justin McCarthy from Today FM. Two questions for you. First of all, could I ask you directly, how are you going to vote when there's a confidence motion tabled in the government on Tuesday or a confidence motion in Taoiseach? Secondly, isn't what you're announcing today effectively continuing to prop up a discredited government, and what the people want is an early election? Why won't you give them that? Thank you.
No, we are not propping up any administration. We're acting again in the most responsible way. We're doing what we said we would do, which is to put through the finance bill. In relation to the whole question of confidence, I think Aidan has that question directly. We believe, and certainly we hope that we will get the cooperation of opposition parties. We do need some level now of bipartisanship in order to get an early election. We believe that what we are doing is genuinely in the best interest of the country.
Mr. Guy Kinnon, Chief Irish Independent, can you state, have you now resigned from ministerial office? Are you about to forward a letter to the Taoiseach? What's obviously the same going for your three ministerial colleagues? And secondly, looking back to June of 2007, do you now regret your decision to go into government in the first place?
Well, first of all, it's with immediate effect, and we've sent those letters and informed the Taoiseach of our decision. There's no sense of regret. Obviously, I did say in my contribution that we regret that it was not in better economic circumstances, but the contribution that we have made is a very valuable contribution. We have, I think, brought forward legislation which is innovative and which improves people's quality of life, and I'm very proud of that legislation. It has been a difficult period in government, but for all that, it has been worthwhile and something that will stand to us in the years to come, because we have, I think, gained an awful lot of experience. Okay, well, Tony, it's more getting a Trevor, August, Trevor, and Pedro, section right.
To come and scale this, to will shock for rowing on the Yifru on made of our like map. August got chance not make ruin Monina, Mata on the port of Brasur in the rear of Mariana and Milla Arigalish. Maar wat derde is een real to show. Maar zijn niet few shockers for the game, niet few a cur ruin we Monina. August ik heb wait to show. Neil she played to win Ma Hardy and Shane, maar the gok shot not make Shane out.
Beetje van Walhall en May en
Neil she played to win Vol, maar Neil een chance daar linje. Go alleen Pupils and they had the room a curfew brought the dollar. The board will make it play Galair, got party marathon Roger, a Giro Air Miller Arrogant.
Maar zijn mannen van de Bill, August Labour in the Tiene, a rate, Walhall and ship, a coalition bad partition.
Kaitu Fanacht, Fair and Cadianan, party of Dibra, August Way. They can wait to show on sheets in the grog, will sheets in the fair and Erdus Border, Erin Miller Arrogant. From Widnet Tarek and Marcus and Realtus, Martian taught on scale active.
Now we'll clear the bag, you has to go the range of ship, should take on bag, new success, Kenyan Captain.
Tá gach duine sa dál ar aon table wine, ar son an bille Arrogadish, agus níl aon taobh eile ann.
Harry? Or in Taylor, just in relation to the finance bill, you say you want a truncated finance bill. Do you have a timetable in relation to when it can possibly be passed? And by pulling out of government, aren't you jeopardising the very thing that you said you're going to stay in government to do, to pass the finance bill, because you're putting Fianna Fáil essentially to ransom and saying you have to accept our version of the finance bill, which is agreed with both Fine Gael and Labour?
Well, first of all, we're not holding anybody to ransom. We're doing exactly what we said we would do. That is, we will pass now the finance bill. Do I believe it's possible to do in a truncated format? Yes, of course it is. And it's a question of how quickly it can be done. Obviously, we would like to do it by Friday. That may not be possible, and we accept that, and we're reasonable about that. So I think some discussions have to take place. But it can happen quickly. and we can, we believe, have a very quick election as a result of that.
Have you discussed this with the government at all? I mean, have you discussed this proposal with the government? And what have they said to you
Well,
about it?
Eamon Ryan has discussed it, and
Well, what have they said about it?
Can I, like with any piece of legislation, there's a certain process you have to go through. You have to have a second stage debate, committee and report, as you know, Harry. The question is, in terms of truncating it, is whether do we need to put through committee amendments? If we don't, then I think it could be done actually in a very, very tight time frame. But that's why I'm saying I think it's a matter now for all the parties to sit down together in a civilised, in a proper manner that the Irish people would expect them to. We have all, I think all parties agreed, yes, this will help our country. And I think we have a better prospect of getting that through, of getting an election started quickly with looking forward rather than in that tangle. And I think it is a matter for each of the finance spokespersons of the party and each party representatives to sit down, as I said, in the next day or two before the Dáil returns to actually see how we can do that. And I think we are talking a matter of a short number of days. I think it should be very, very short. My personal view is we should reduce the amendments down, and I would even question, could we do it without necessary amendments? In that way, I think it could be done very quickly. That's obviously a matter for discussion with the Minister of Finance. We have had discussions with him on it. It was obviously proper and important to have that. He has set out, as I think he said in his press conference today, that there are technical difficulties, or there are certain legislative processes that may make it difficult. That is the sort of detailed issues that I think all parties should share in a proper session, so that we can hopefully reach some agreement on that issue. And I think if we can, I think the Irish people, it would restore confidence in our political system. It would restore confidence in the Dáil Éireann to see it working as a proper parliament where all representatives work in a collegiate way. And I think for this one moment, John and others in our party have been saying consistently, this is a time for that type of politics, even for just 1 week. And it would allow, I think, all of us face the electorate in a far more positive framework. It would allow all of us to go to the doors with what our vision of the future is, rather than looking back at some of the difficulties of the last 6 months.
John, can I just ask you again a question you've been asked a number of times, and maybe you can give a clear answer to it. In the event of Fine Gael and or Labour pressing ahead with their confidence votes, how will the Greens vote?
Well, sorry, Brian, I think it's been made clear by Fine Gael, and certainly in our discussions with Fine Gael, they have said specifically that they are not pressing ahead with that motion of confidence, that they will facilitate the passage of the finance bill. That's what they have said, and we're saying you should keep your word. That's what you promised, keep your word, and we can work with opposition parties to do that. So let's work together to do that. It doesn't arise at this stage.
Well, I mean, Labour are. What about Labour, who put down their...
Well, again, they have said, as I understand it, did they not say that they're not pressing ahead, they will facilitate the early passage of the finance bill?
By next Friday.
That's what
by next Friday.
Well, look, I think they need to understand that there has to be a degree of reasonableness around this matter.
It may be possible. That is the sort of detail that can be worked out. If Brian Lannan has real difficulties and his department, let the department as well set out what the possible timelines are. That is a matter that the Labour Party, Fine Gael, ourselves and Fianna Fáil, I believe, should sit down tomorrow and actually see what is possible. And if it is possible, then I think we will see finance passed, as I say, in a way that benefits everyone.
But when does the time run out? If it's not this Friday, then when is it? Is it next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
That sort of detail would have to be decided in that sort of meeting. I would think, John, it is you're talking about of days, and my preference would be, yes, to do it by Friday.
Two more questions, John.
Do we take it now, therefore, that the earliest indicative date for the general election, so what the people want to know, is that there will be a short campaign of 3 weeks, and we may have it as early as February the 20th. Is that a correct understanding of the position? And secondly, last Thursday, in answer to a question from me, you said you would not vote for the finance bill from opposition, and yet that's exactly what you're doing now. So what's changed in a few days?
Well, okay, I don't have a clear recollection of that, I'll be honest with you, Senator, but what I can say to you is this, that the actual duration of a campaign and when the election is called, of course, is the prerogative of Taoiseach. These are issues that he must address. But certainly, we brought forward the date of the election, first of all, by our announcement on the 22nd of November. And then, of course, there were other issues that arose because we could not support the nomination of new ministers. So all of those matters have actually been dealt with, but the actual duration of the campaign and the date of the election is something else.
You have a February election.
John Dormy, the one thing that's perfectly obvious as you stand there with colleagues is that the uncertainty continues this afternoon. What is the argument against having the election with the Taoiseach going to the RS tonight?
Well, that's a matter for the Taoiseach, but I mean, I think the argument against it is one as well that is recognised by opposition parties, that we do need some certainty around the finance bill. It does need to pass. We've said that it's in the national interest, genuinely in the national interest, that happens. Otherwise, we will have a delay with the implementation of that. And particularly, when you're talking
Is it
about...
that you don't trust the other parties who will form the next government to implement the finance bill after an election?
No, it's the delay, and we have had discussions with the Department of Finance about these matters, and they are concerned about potential delay. I mean, you're right in identifying this as an issue, because I do believe that perhaps some of the opposition parties don't really want to deal with this, but if that is the case, they should facilitate the early passage of this legislation.
John, there are only 7 senior ministers left now at the Cabinet table. Have you been given any indication by the Taoiseach or otherwise what is going to happen in your 2 portfolios? Because you're down to the bare constitutional minimum now.
No, we've been given no indication about the Taoiseach in relation to that matter.
Do you have concerns though about who is governing the country, who's left in power now?
Well, to be honest, if it's for a very short space of time, I don't think it's a really valid point, because I think the government can continue in truncated format, if I can use that phraseology again. But that is the situation, and I think it's not going to make a huge difference for the small period of time that is left.
Thank you very much. Last question.
If the Taoiseach tried to appoint ministers to those portfolios and the other portfolios, what would your attitude be then?
Well, again, you see, you're dealing in hypothesis the whole time. I mean, we're going to deal with issues as they arise. These are not issues that have arisen. The issue that we are going to deal with now is the passage of the finance bill. We're going to do that from the opposition benches, and we're going to do it, we hope, in cooperation with opposition.
Okay, very nice.
The Taoiseach has said in Portlaoise this afternoon it's his view that the finance bill cannot be progressed within the next 7 days. Where does that leave your sense this afternoon?
Well, that's again a matter for the Taoiseach, Minister for Finance. I think further discussions have to take place, and we'll see after those discussions have concluded where we can go.
Would you like Thank you very much. Last question as asked.
Before the election?
That's a matter, entirely a matter for the Taoiseach. That's where that is. It's a constitutional prerogative. We believe, however, and I said this in my contribution, we do believe that the Irish people want to see political certainty, economic certainty, and they do want an election. And I hope it's an election where we can have an opportunity for the various political parties to put forward their views on how we get real economic recovery, and that it's not just a case of people going out with empty promises, because there is every chance that people will go forward with those empty promises, which simply cannot be fulfilled under these circumstances.
It's a likelihood of our announcement today. That's all. Thank you very much. That's the end of the press conference.
Thank you.